Carry on,
All right.
Victor.
Perfect. So yeah, to recap, it's to attach the standards or a set of standards to a student instead of to a course or a section, so that the student can carry those standards from class to class, from year to year, and future teachers can look back to where the proficiency levels are for each one of those students in the past and present and even future if they've done the work ahead.
Yep, and possible gaps.
Sure.
So if you're the grade 5 teacher and you want to get a good sense of maybe some gaps in learning, you could use that as well too. And also we're looking at high school renewal as well too, in terms of moving away from percentages and grades and starting to look at what they've learned rather than what they've earned,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah. And I'll start with this. I don't know if Ted shared with you a version of this report or showed them this to you. Kind of like the end results of what we can do with what PowerSchool has today. And this could be an example. It would be a report, an object report that would have, for a student, a number of areas of outcomes or masteries or standards, whatever we want to call them. And you can do a couple of things with PowerSchool, just to give you the end first, and then we'll step back as detailed as we need to.
Absolutely.
We can create a report like this. I don't have it built in my demo environment, but Ted actually provided this to us, where you can have a number of areas of mastery that the teachers can cover on a grade level or class to class basis, or year to year, semester to semester, or whatever, over time.
Mm-hmm.
The report card or this report, progress report, however you want to label it, mastery report,
Yep.
for the student, then we'll be able to draw from last year and the year before, and produce a report like this that could span multiple years, like it shows here, from grade 2 to grade 3, even first trimester of grade 4, where each teacher that has that student in that time span would be able to assess where that student is for that particular outcome and time frame.
And
Now,
is that just, is that just for clarification for me, is that also that only for the outcomes that are attached for the grade 4 teacher, as in this example, or would they be able to go back and change, or not change? Well, yeah, maybe change. Maybe they were not passing it before, but now they are. So would they be able to go back in the past and change it?
They wouldn't be able to go in the past and change it. Is one of the issues, if you will,
Yep.
because of the way that PowerSchool stores those standards and attaches them. They're really attached to the term and class, or term and section.
Yep.
So the teacher, like in this example, a third grade teacher here will be able to have the grade 2 standards in their grade book. You just need to, if they're the English teacher or the homeroom teacher or whatnot, they'll be able to have, however many standards, even spanning different grades. But if they go and assess and give a grade or a mark for any of those outcomes, it's going to be stored newly. So let's say that the teacher on grade 3 on the first trimester goes back and gives the student an assessment or observation, whatever, and evaluates this standard on trimester 3 for the concepts that should have been covered in trimester 3 of grade 2. Those standards will be saved under that standard. The mastery icon, or the standard, the mastery rubric, will be saved for that standard, but it will be saved as part of the grade 3 trimester 1 class, if that makes sense.
It does. So if you were a grade 5 teacher running this report, 2 years down the road, because you're a grade 3 teacher now, and grade 5, so 2 years down the road, if the grade 5 teacher ran this report, it would capture all the data that's right here.
Hmm.
Because it's a, now do we have to store the grades for that, or does that come out of the tables? Because right now we store our high school grades, but we do not store our K to 8 grades. They are just within the tables within the SIS and Power Teacher Pro.
Yeah, I believe you do, or there. I'm sure there used to be a stored standards grade procedure, a process at the end of each term,
Yeah.
which would, if you will, stamp the final grade for each term. I'm not sure if that's done automatically now with just a final mark.
Okay.
But either way, it will be. I mean, it might be useful depending on how much data you want to see, because if this is and this would be more on with a more perhaps with a web-based report instead of an object report. It's a little more static. On a web-based report, this could report the grade 2 standard as it was evaluated during the third grade,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever mark was there before at grade 2. So you might be able to see them too and compare, wait a minute, this teacher in third grade was able to move that student further on that grade 2 standard. And you can also see the grade 2 standard. Again, it could give you a little bit more information, but it depends on what you want to show. Again, if you're just showing student progress of mastery, then this might be more like what you want. But what we don't have with the setup is the ability for the third grade teacher to reach back and change a second grade teacher mark for that student, for that mastery.
Right. Okay.
Does that translate?
That translates for me. And I mean, the bigger questions could be, do we really want that too? Right.
Right.
If it's the historical record of the time, that's one thing. But if we want to know that the child can finally do it, that's another thing. Right. So
right.
Again, those are bigger questions that are not going to be answered here right now.
Sure.
But you know what I mean, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. At least I hope you know what I mean, I should say.
And it is a good thing for us to consider too, because that definitely should go into the design of whatever we end up doing, because you could see merits and drawbacks for both approaches. For
right.
When you attach the mastery of a concept to a student, do you want a newer teacher to be able to override what the prior teacher did? In this case, with a second grade subject on that, or a second grade skill on that subject versus a third grade skill. So yeah, that's and again, and all of that is derived from us attaching those scores that the teachers give to the student, but to the student through the lens of the course and the term where they're assessed.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just to use the trimesters, if we have second trimester right now in progress in the 18-19 school year, then if me as that third grade teacher gives a student a mark on a skill that was supposed to be taught first in second grade, then it can be stored, and you can give the teacher the ability by just adding those second grade standards to that teacher. Right. But it will be saved as part of the third grade activities that student performed. And then you'll have both marks, the second grade mark and the third grade mark for that same skill.
Right, because both sets of outcomes would be attached.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What that would look for an administrator with the out of the box functionality, without that report that could bring it all together, is if I and I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it, or
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay, good. Is that if I find a student and I go under academics to standards, again, because of how we are storing this information, is you'll be able to see in this example, the 18-19 school year, all of the outcomes for this school year for every one of the classes. And then you'll be able to go back this could be available both for the teachers and for administrators, and view those same outcomes or whatever version of those outcomes were on the prior year for that student. But then it would be a year-to-year progression, if you will, and then the report will be able to put them more side by side. Here you would have to go
Yep.
and update. Mm-hmm.
This just shows you the year as opposed to comparatively.
Comparatively, exactly, right.
So in a way, I guess you can see what year they accomplished which task, or no?
Yeah, or at least what level they were at for each standard, for each skill. So you could see, just to use a quick example, let's say in listens and follows directions, you could see that the student was, approaching proficiency in the 17-18 school year. And if you go to the 18-19 school year, if the teacher works with that same skill, then you might see that they achieved proficiency or they went, above expectations on that skill. But then you'll be able to see the level of that student for each school year, and then that object report or that report can then pull it together and show it side by side, year by year, what those students did.
Right.
The other thing that might be worth exploring, I'd say, just for general tools and things that you can use, is enterprise reporting as well. I don't know how much you've worked with enterprise reports.
We just finished doing our threat assessment on it, and that has been so all the security hurdles have been passed.
Okay.
Because we're required to do those assessments before we unleash something within the system.
Sure.
And so right now it's within Service New Brunswick. They are our technical team, and they're now doing the analysis of the out-of-the-box fields versus our customized fields, because we have some customizations and whatnot. So
gotcha.
We're waiting for it to come along. The wheels are in motion, but we're not there yet.
Certainly, yeah. So yeah, it's basically a tabular report. It wouldn't be more as much or necessarily student by student or something that you would hand a parent or a student. It would be more of a tabular report like this. But you can certainly filter, sort, aggregate, do averages or median and mode kind of calculations so that you can see more perhaps grade level or school-wide reports of where the students are on those different skills. Mm-hmm. Just offering there as a place to look at of potentially good reports and good data tools for your administrators more than anything when they're looking at a collection of students and how they're performing in terms of their standards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what I would say we can do without going too much into setup and configuration. That's I trust this is clear. It sounds like it is coming through.
It is. It's coming. I understand the front end of it, and I have a pretty good sense of how it's working in the back end. Mm-hmm. But I would have to take that to Denis Dag. I don't think you've met Denis yet, but he's our IT strategy guy for the education side of things. And so he would have a better sense on how everything's pulled together. The other person is Jean-Guy Doucet. He is our SIS support analyst. Mm-hmm. And so he's another one that I'm going to show the video to as well, because they would understand some of the technical side of things that I don't work with. So,
right.
But from what you're saying to me, I understand exactly what you're putting forward here.
Okay. Any other questions or anything else that you wanted to cover while we were together?
So all of this right here is with your Power School. Well, we're going to be going to 12 shortly.
Sure.
So Power School 12. This would not be with the Unified Classroom or any additional plugins or anything like that we do not own.
Yeah, this is all regular Power School Student Information System functionality, correct?
Oh, right. So because they're going to ask that, they're going to say, what can we do today with what we own? Mm-hmm. So that answers the question. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay.
does the Unified Classroom offer anything? I know I remember seeing in the Unified Classroom you could actually attach the standards and outcomes. Say, let's say you're the language arts teacher in, sorry, let me change that. Let's say you're an elementary teacher, and a lot of elementary teachers do integrated units, right? So they'll do, the social studies outcomes at the same time as language arts.
Right.
And right now, all we can do is you have to open up your section of social studies, and then you have to open up your section of language arts, and you have to track outcomes separately at the moment. But I know in the Unified Classroom, you could combine them together so that you would have all of them in one place. Is there any way?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, is there any way of leveraging that for more? Because right now we work in silos. Outcomes are attached to sections of courses, and students are put in there with teachers. And is there a way of bridging it so it's a little more holistic? And if it is Unified Classroom, well, it's Unified Classroom. That's fine, because then I can tell them that we can't do it with what we have, but we could do the following with a different product.
Yeah. You could technically do it as well and I'm just bringing up an example class here.
Sure.
With what you have today. The underpinnings of the Unified Classroom are very much the same as the SIS in terms of this conversation about standards and how they're stored. But you can, like I hear the example that I have is a class that has their curriculum, academic outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
and then a different set. In this case, it's behaviors for learning, but this could be easily, like you were saying, a history and a language arts, or math and science, or whatever 2 or 3 sets of outcomes that you could have together. It's just a matter of tying those outcomes to the course numbers that would require multiple sets of outcomes or competencies.
Yeah, because sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that, and in the case where, let's say the homeroom teacher teaches an outcome or works with a skill that a different teacher is teaching at the same time, then the system will average the two when reporting the final mark, or can average the 2 marks from teacher A and teacher B to produce a final value for that skill for the report card, for example, or the progress report.
Yeah, so that's the roll-up comments.
Sure, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, because we're also looking at more integrated work, project-based learning, things like that. And so, at a middle school level, if you had a course code that was called project-based learning, and you could attach many or most or all of the outcomes to one. I mean, it would be a lot of work to plow through, because it would be a big list, but the ability would be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't believe there's a filtering option when you do that, when you're attaching standards. I can't remember in PowerTeacher Pro. I can't remember.
In PowerTeacher Pro, there is.
There's
you can filter by keyword. So if you're,
okay.
looking for, angles, you can just type angles and it'll give you the standards that have, or the outcomes that have standards. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And can you, I don't know if you have access right now to Victor to the Unified Classroom login, but there are a couple of things I'm thinking about with project-based learning that Unified Classroom adds above and beyond PowerTeacher Pro. And that would be, there's the communication piece where teachers can communicate with the students and students with the teachers, as well as the ability to, you can see activity feeds, you can see any assignments that are coming due, a student can see their homework list. And so there's the communication piece. There's also rubrics that can be built out too, and documents can be attached. So you see on the top right, recent assignments there. So you can see that the teacher can attach a task or a rubric or whatever, and then the student can also submit their homework by attaching something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The concept of a rubric is very interesting to me. especially when you get to more complex assignments and activities like project-based learning, because you will have rubrics that you can work with. Like in this case, they have, grammar, punctuation, syntax. They can roll up to provide a final mark for the project, and the teachers or the district, if I go to my grading tab, can create their own rubrics for working, and they could be, just like you would expect, like they've traditionally handed out for projects, for elements of design and this art rubric, there'll be a 1, 2, 3, and 4 points possible, and each one has their own description, and then the teacher can use those rubrics to assess the student.
Yes.
The rubrics are key. The other thing that I would, in terms of project-based learning, under class pages, is the concept of the wiki page. I don't know if you remember or have covered that before.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's converting the student into the author of a wiki page, exactly, where they can add text, they can record themselves doing an activity or their experiment and include that, and then each student will have the ability to create their site, like you see here from the teacher perspective, that I can view the site for every one of my students. But furthermore, for that individualized touch in terms of instruction with this learning project, is that the teacher can reach down and customize the project for the student. So when the teacher assigns, XYZ project, let's say, build a rocket that can fly up to 100 meters in the air or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. Then depending on the skill of the student, what they've learned or not, or their capacity, the teacher themselves can go in and provide context or a format that's individual to student groups or to individual students. So you can really personalize those kind of projects to the student's capacity, above and beyond what it would be much easier to do it this way than what you would normally with paper or handing out individual projects for each of the students. And you can do all of that online, and then use that rubric to grade the student, and all of that will make it back to the grade book and to the standards and everything else.
Right.
And so what you're seeing here, Alistair, this is, when Victor first logged in and was showing you that dashboard for the students, that's Unified Classroom. And this is Unified Classroom with the learning piece. So you would get Unified Classroom plus learning for building those lessons out without.
They come together?
They come together, and they are, the last time that we spoke about it, well, one time we spoke about it over a year ago. Remember, we had talked about that we had a standalone learning product. Well, this is now Unified Learning within the Unified Classroom, and it is now hosted on Canadian soil. So it is ready to go in Canada.
Okay, that was a change, yeah.
Yes.
I don't think that was there when we had our Atlantic Power School University.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, okay, that's good. And I don't know if maybe the two of you can come and help me think this through here in terms of, let's say we want to, badging is really another way of packaging outcomes just by calling it a different thing, if you will. So if we identify the skills and competencies, it would be similar to identifying the, general curriculum outcomes, specific outcomes, and then all the different strands that are attached to that as well, too. Is it possible to add graphics to show that a child has finished a certain level of skill in public speaking? If we're looking at communication skills for a 21st century, there could be different kinds.
Right. So yes, there is badging inside of the Unified Classroom through Learning. I have to check if those badges travel with the child, or are they classroom-specific badges? I am not sure of that. That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Let me find that out, and I'll get back to you, and I know exactly who to ask. I'm actually going to send them a question right now.
Okay.
But that's an excellent question. Yeah, because that would be an excellent way to keep track of competencies for a student. If
Yeah,
those badges travel with a student, that's a great idea.
Mhm.
because we've got globally competent learners, right?
Yeah,
And the workplace and institutions, secondary levels of institution, they want to know not just what a child has learned, but what can they do, and and skills and knowledge. So if we've got a system that says that they can do X, Y, or Z to level A, B, and C, then a child can say, I've done it, but I'm only at the C level. I need to keep moving up, or whatever the case may be. Um, this is me speaking, just conceptualizing it, by the way. But it still comes down to how can we keep track of what kids know, and maybe it's research skills that we want them to do. Well, you can do research in any subject. You can do research in art. You can do it in science. But when I say research, most people just automatically go to science,
right.
right? And we all know that's not true. You
Yeah,
need you need to be able to drill down information for just about anything. So why should we just give a skills badge for researching in what we typically call a science-based thing?
hmm
So maybe the art teacher understands the full levels of skills for research and therefore can also give the badge.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good thinking. I would have not thought of that as a vehicle for that, but it's definitely. I like the idea a lot for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. And a lot of people are talking about it right now. I know PEI is talking about that as well too, and
Mhm.
other Canadian jurisdictions as well, British Columbia. Um, yeah. So these are our concepts in infancy, right? And
Yeah.
but I think you can see the advantage of being able to tell. A kid could have a portfolio of all the things they know and can do, and what their soft and hard skills are. People skills versus research skills.
hmm
Then they could say, "This is me."
Yeah. There is the concept also again, and not to send you in too many different directions of the e-portfolio as well
Right.
in,
Yes.
inside of the unified classroom and learning. So every one of the students will have an e-portfolio that can be shared inside of the school. Uh, Again, I'm very curious to see what the answer is. Uh, if we do have that concept of badges that travel with the student, just for lack of a better description,
Because
and
I mean, if you're thinking about the e-portfolio, maybe that's the way it works, right?
right, for sure the e-portfolio travels with the child. I just have a question if the badges can be part of that e-portfolio, because if it is, then it will travel with the child, and any teacher can go to that student's e-portfolio and see the history of badges and achievements, if you will, or mastery areas that they've completed.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So there might be something there. I'll wait
Yeah,
back. I'll wait back for your answer on that for sure.
definitely.
Yeah. Um,
Good. Anything else that we could discuss or that I can answer for you?
that's what I'm just kind of running down in my head just to see if there's anything else. I wish some of my counterparts were here as well too, because they may have some more specific questions within their own wheelhouse. But
Well, we can share this recording with them, and then I'll send you a link shortly, and then they can definitely follow up with any questions via email. We'd be happy to address them.
yeah, that would be great, because I remember we did that before too, way back when, for the unified classroom.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
We got a lot of questions then, yeah.
we
And
did. Yeah.
I am working on just providing you with updated just pricing on that for budgetary purposes as you're planning. I know it's a ways down the road, but just for budgetary reasons.
It's always a factor, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, that's just the way business is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, this has been great. Okay, so yep, so we've got some options on within the SIS now in terms of object reports. Limitations being the ability to update past things. Yeah, like right here. If the standards are attached If multiple grade standards are attached for the grade 3 student, then the teacher can go backwards and forwards as long as they're attached as well.
Right.
I'm just recapping this, just make sure I have it right. It does not overwrite what was stored in grade 2, though. This would just be the report of what was stored in this year for grade 2.
Correct.
Okay. It's possible to put multiple outcomes for many courses in this. We were looking at, because we do that now. We have learning, the learning habits in our K-8, and so they're attached either at the grade level in 6-8 or at the homeroom level in K-5. But instead of learning habits, we could actually attach other outcomes. So we could have a course code called project-based learning, and then the teacher would have access to more than just the traditional categories of outcomes, like all the math only.
True. Yes.
Okay. Am I missing anything? Object reporting. No, sorry, enterprise reporting.
Right.
Has some capabilities of looking at things holistically, you know, from an admin side. And I know you can print off reports as well too, which you could share, but it would be, it really is more of an analytic tool.
It is, yeah. And you can share reports as well from user to user or at the school or building level. But yeah, it is definitely more of a building level analytical tool that you can think of, you know, things that you would normally do in a tool like Excel is a good analogy or a good comparison.
Yes.
Anything that you would normally do in Excel, put in a number of values, average, or create a graph, trend over time. Those kind of things is what enterprise reporting is designed to do, and it can do that with the outcomes based learning for the student for all that data.
Right, and if I remember correctly, I think it has to work on stored values. Because I think when we were playing with it, we were able to pull the marks for high school very quickly and easily, but not so much for our achievement indicators. So,
I believe so. Yeah, it's stored values, not the in progress grade.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's just good information to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for me.
Great. I'm going to stop recording and we'll
Okay.
share you that link.